The battlefield of today is a shadow world of special forces soldiers who stalk each other without mercy. These highly trained teams are often the first boots on the ground when diplomacy fails and the going gets tough. They come in early, they come in hard, and they come at night, because night is the killing time. This assault has been an exercise for a team of soldiers undergoing the tough training the original Special Forces unit took back in 1942. History remembers those men as the first Special Service Force, but Hollywood called them
the Devils Brigade.
The movie created the myth. These soldiers are living the reality. For the next month, they'll train and fight the way the Devils Brigade did.
Hey, come on, you're under fire.
And if they think being a soldier in 1942 was easy, they're in for a shock.
You're under fire. Come on, engage. Do not interfere on the range. Understand? Or I'll kick your. I tell him to do something, he does it.
Their time in the past will be violent and brutal.
Kill him, for God's sake.
Before it's over, one of these men will almost die. 4 will be hospitalized, and 2 will go home. Those who tough it out will come to Europe to attempt one of the Devils Brigade's most dangerous missions. The experience will be harder than the soldiers could ever have imagined. It will push some to their limits.
Now we do it because we're all soldiers and we don't turn back or none of that shit. Because that's just what we are, we're soldiers.
Using muscle, courage, and all their special forces training, the men will try to do what the Devils Brigade once did: overcome the odds and defeat a resolute and determined enemy. These men are not actors, but experienced German soldiers. And just like the Panzer Grenadiers who held this outpost 60 years ago, this squad is hell-bent on holding their position.
Stellung. Über vorne, Laubbaum, 150. Okay. Die sehen wir an.
On a spring morning in 1942, the legend of the Devils Brigade was born here in Montana.
One section, 2 in the middle, 3 on the left.
These 15 men are all professional soldiers. They're men like Brian Haynes from Fort Benning, Georgia. Brian is a drill sergeant in the U.S. Army.
Haynes, one section, put your kid outside. Where you go? Next. Boucher.
And Albert Boucher, a master warrant officer in the North Saskatchewan Regiment who has recently returned from Afghanistan.
Boucher, 1.
Bert.
Burke?
Bird.
And Chris Bird, a sniper from the Royal Regina Rifles, who also teaches unarmed combat. These soldiers, like all the others, are hard men who've led courageous lives. And just like the original Devils Brigade volunteers who came here a lifetime ago, they have no idea what they're in for.
I was completely amazed at the destination. I had no idea when I volunteered for this unit that I would be heading for the United States of America.
All we knew is that we were going west somewhere. Off the train and you're about ankle deep in dust and what on earth have I got into?
And when we saw all these different uniforms and everything, what's going on here? We couldn't figure it out.
Okay, welcome back to Helena. What you're about to take right now is the same training as they did in 1942-43. No surprise, you're all qualified soldier, and this is the way you're gonna be treated as such. You can wear your equipment as you see fit. What we're looking for is people who can perform with the equipment that they're given.
The men of the brigade were both Canadians and Americans. This squad is too. Danny Hassel is a U.S. Ranger who's seen tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan.
The middle, right? So let's get the, hey, what do you think, brother? Let's put the middle up. Sorry,
Jay Budd is the third man in his family to wear the Green Beret. Jay specializes in high-altitude free-fall jumping at night. Andrew Rowe is a tough kid from Nova Scotia who will soon earn the nickname the Fighting Fetus. And every unit has its rookie. Meet 18-year-old Kevin Hansen, a high school quarterback who's recently volunteered for the U.S. Army.
wasn't that guy. I wish I was.
The troops have been issued a standard 1940s kit.
This kit right here is not the best.
For Canadian Scott Young, it's a big change from what he's used to.
It's so awkward, like it's just difficult. Like we have brand new webbing and stuff back home, and tack vests and stuff, and it's just so hard to like adjust yourself and like.
Scott likes Army life. He won't like it in 1942.
It sucks. Very disappointed. It really hasn't, I don't know. It's really been a big disappointment. I've been really upset about the whole time, the whole thing.
The Devils Brigade was born in the darkest days of the Second World War. As the Third Reich conquered Europe, Churchill secretly worried the German fighting man was tougher than anything the Allies had. Something special was needed. The Devils Brigade was the answer. The British couldn't afford the cost of the unit, so the Americans stepped in. But few American soldiers had ever fought in the cold. Canadians had.
A lot of us had never met Canadians before. We didn't get along too good with them right in the beginning. Not too great.
Canadians pretty much in the yes sir, no sir, spit and polish type thing, and especially the guys that went to the force. The Americans were kind of a loose group.
The brass-knuckled Americans. The brass-buttoned Canadians.
The Canadians got paid less than the U.S. soldiers.
Yeah, but you know what we always said? Americans couldn't play poker worth a damn. We straightened the money out after payday.
And of course, just being from a different country started some bar fights.
That was overplayed in that stupid movie. There really wasn't a lot of problem.
Above everything else, it was the brutal training which broke those barriers. Whether you came from Texas or Toronto was meaningless. Everyone double-timed around camp and was loaded like bullets in the back of a truck for another day of running the mountains.
We had a lot of stuff in common, and you found those common things, and that's what broke down the barriers.
U.S. infantryman fears only God and his own artillery.
Joe George has just returned from Iraq. He's volunteered for this tough training to learn from the past.
We can't forget the lessons that have been passed down to us, written sometimes literally in the blood of soldiers. We cannot afford to forget those lessons.
Then they took us over to Muscle Mountain, and that looked like about a 10,000-foot mountain to us. You didn't make that one on the run the first few times, but...
Look that way. Pine Mountain. That's where we're going. The one with trees on the right-hand side, that's the one. 2 jerrycans per section. First section to the top must wait for the other 2 to arrive. Okay?
Special Forces soldiers, like many of these men, consider themselves the best of the best. They say weak links simply don't exist. Today, they'll find out if that's true.
Hey, it's going great. Life is good. We're gonna find out if I'm as hard as my grandfather.
Running up this mountain, carrying jugs of water was something every member of the brigade did on their first day of training.
How's it going?
Okay.
The way it was put, you want to get out of this outfit, just don't finish doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you'll be gone. Well, nobody would drop out.
I ached. I ached for a while until I got accustomed to it, and then it just sort of didn't bother me anymore.
The jerry cans of water, the heavy gear, and the thin Montana air all take their toll. However, these are elite soldiers who've climbed mountains in Afghanistan, hunted killers in Iraq. They've seen a lot worse than this. And everybody makes it to the top.
Take a look around, guys. It's beautiful. Almost worth the climb.
The technology of war may have changed, but the essence of being a soldier has not. Respect is earned, not ordered, and you work hard to prove you belong. If the training is tough, you had better be tougher.
The whole thing in the training was, I'm going to make you quit. And the answer was, like hell.
Okay, listen up. We're going for a 4.5 to 5 hour walk. Kit is fairly light. We probably got in there average of 35 to 40 pounds only. That's your first one. The weight and the distance will increase as we go along.
They took you out on a 25-mile route march and say, this is just conditioning marches.
There had never been a unit like the 1st Special Service Force. 3 regiments, almost 2,000 soldiers who trained like commandos, but fought like partisans. Designed to operate behind enemy lines, the men were selected for their unconventional skills. Cowboys, farmers, street-tough city kids. If you liked a good fight, you were the brigade's kind of soldier.
Training was very rugged and very tough, and very a lot of it. It wasn't just a little bit here, a little bit there. It was training every day and every morning and every night. And we got toughened up pretty good.
It was tough. I'd been through some pretty tough training. Parachute training was always tough, but this, I think, was about at the upper end of toughness. It certainly put us in condition for anything that was to come next.
The men took the training in stride, hiking hundreds of miles across the Montana foothills. Although the instructors tried to break them, in an age of guts and glory, no one wanted to be called a quitter.
It wasn't so much, it was the training, it was the stick-to-itiveness. That's what was important about the training. And of course, physical conditioning and, you know.
Tough men need an even tougher leader. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Frederick was just such a man.
We just idolized that man. He was a real, highly qualified officer of great ability, outstanding intelligence, and great bravery, personally.
When Frederick took command, he requested two things: a specially designed killing knife and a stockpile of enemy weapons. He got them both. Frederick knew a large force operating behind enemy lines would be difficult to resupply, so he trained his men to fight with German guns.
Come on, crack it back. That's it. Now get the hang. Come on, squeeze the rounds off. Good marksmanship. Stop f***ing around.
The Mauser. The Luger. The Schmeisser machine pistol were standard Wehrmacht weapons. The Schmeisser, in particular, was a favorite of German paratroopers. It had a light trigger.
Hey, hey! Whoa, 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 what was that?
But there was one Wehrmacht weapon feared and admired above all the others. The MG-42 machine gun. 1,200 rounds a minute, accurate over half a mile, and weighing less than 25 pounds. The MG-42 was a simple, reliable killing machine.
That's a great gun.
It was a lot faster than our Browning machine gun. Oh, much different sound. The rapidity of the firing was a dead giveaway.
The brigade had a great weapon of its own, the Thompson M1 submachine gun. The men called them room cleaners.
Oh, the Tommy gun was everybody. A lot of the guys wanted that because you could spray a pretty good path with that thing, and a lot of guys had it.
I thought to myself, wow, Tommy gun, Al Capone.
Introduced in 1921, the Thompson was a crime-fighting submachine gun. Knock him down and he'll stay down, the ads boasted. But at $200 each, the Thompson was too expensive for most police departments. So the military bought them. Angelo Godola, a sergeant in the U.S. Army, has fired many weapons. He says nothing beats the Thompson.
Firing the .45 caliber Thompson is one of the best experiences to do. Ever since I was a kid, you carry around that toy gun, and you're hoping to get a chance to shoot it someday, and this is the first chance I ever got to have it in my hand, so it was great.
For the men of the brigade, the Thompson was no toy. They'd soon be facing an enemy which had conquered nations in weeks. They wanted all the firepower they could get.
This is worth it just for the first.
Chow time, and the troops eat well. The Devils Brigade was probably the only infantry unit in history not to complain about food. Frederick ordered his cooks to either buy or steal the best food they could.
We ate very well indeed.
Food was marvelous, absolutely marvelous. And the toughest part about the eating was that you had to eat quickly and you had to have a long reach. Otherwise, you left the table hungry.
Good food means good morale. And after a few days in the past, these soldiers are also a happy squad. They ran the mountain, shot the guns, and think they can do what the old guys did without too much pain. But they haven't gone one-on-one with Bill Wolf yet.
You need a wider angle, so you can block wide, false. Okay, there's the knife trapped. Okay, take it off him, all right? This is not going to be... Hands up. Drive into him. Get your hands on your head. Right there. Key stick. You couldn't be a very good cook, okay?
Meet Bill Wolf, one of the meanest 60-year-olds around.
Drive into the guy's chest. Okay, then you got his eyes with these hands.
Wolf, a hand-to-hand instructor in the Canadian Army, teaches what's called defendo, fighting dirty.
If the guy's going gung-ho on you, protect, bust his legs. If he's got no wheels, he can't fight.
He learned his trade from Pat O'Neill, the man who trained the brigade.
Well, the hand-to-hand combat was with Pat O'Neill, and it was his kick and poke method that he had developed while he was with the Shanghai police.
And he was an expert unarmed combat guy. He was a 6th degree black belt. He had a very simple philosophy. If you have a gun, use it. If you have a rock, use it. If you have a stick, use it. If you don't have anything, this is what you do.
And what you did was forget the rules and fight like a Shanghai street cop.
Because what you're thinking is fighting square fight. Okay, what you got to do is get out of the boxing mindset, the sports mindset. If I go boxing, you bust my legs.
The first thing he taught you was to close, never retreat, which is what your opponent expects if he menaces you.
You got to close and take the guy out. If he's throwing jabs, whoomp, 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 you're backing up, you fall in a fucking hole. Keep your hands up, cover, bust him. Take his lead leg out, break it. You're thinking sport. Got it? Practice. Let's go. Close the hole and kill.
For me personally, because I was a kind of a mild-mannered kind of a youth, I had a hard time with that. In the hand-to-hand combat, I was always the loser, you know. I didn't think I had it in me to do this sort of stuff, but after a while, I picked it up.
I'm gonna have to hurt him, aren't I? Back to his eyes again. Okay, position. Nervous stuff. Up. Okay, eyeballs.
It's no sport at all. It's kill. And it's your, how good are you at defense against somebody attacking you, so you can be effective in killing. Just that simple.
Nice and simple. Grabbing left hand to his wrist, underarm pull. Get behind him. All right? This is called an arm drag. The purpose of it is to clear the front position, take his back so you can pick him up. All right? So, nice and simple. In here, pause. Take him out, down. All right? Working it off nice and simple. From here, 1, 2, pass. The dirtier it is, the better I like it. Got it? Right. Partner up, practice. Thank you.
The dirtier it is, the better I like it. The Devils Brigade way. And Chris Bird is about to find out exactly how dirty that can be.
Mr. Bird, get over here. Okay? Now, keep your stance. Okay? When we're looking in here, eyes.
Chris teaches self-defense and knows his way around a fight. But he's not prepared for Wolf. In case you missed it, here it is again. Right finger, left eye, fight over.
Okay? Get out of the... He's f***ing decapped now. Understand?
Roger, son.
Where his hands go?
Towards his face.
Right? Then you can take advantage of position. Okay, now you guys got to get out of the sports concept.
This is brutal, savage, but they asked for it. We can take it and we can dish it out.
Just do it nice and simple.
Chris Bird got off easy. Kevin Hansen is up next.
His hands drop, you can take position. Anytime the guy keeps his hand in a up position, smack him here. Break in here. If you're too close, ball. Okay, and that was just a light tap. How old are you?
19, sorry.
19. My daughter's 21. That's why I practice on young fellas.
Hits to the temple, which could kill a man. Hit to the nose up here, right under there, which would drive hard enough to drive the nose portion back up into the brain and kill an individual.
What I'm working in here is his nose, see? I straighten him up. This gets into here. And I kill him. When these legs come in, tap his nuts 4 or 5 times. Go like that with your heels in his balls. Go hit his nuts. Does that feel good?
No, Sergeant.
You're doing that. Where do you think his mindset's going?
Out the window.
To stop his from choking. Then you choke the out. Take out his right eyeball and feed it to that. Just crossing your legs means when you cross 4 times in the balls, choke him out as you're doing it, poke out his eye. And do it. Get out of here. Practice. Kill him. And if he resists, take his eye out.
We weren't in a wrestling match. It was kill and maim, not hurt, and shake hands. So to this day, none of us know how to do that.
We're teaching them how to tactically kill the enemy using stealth, movement, and overwhelming superiority of mental attitude.
The Devils Brigade claimed they owned the night. Patience, stealth, and sudden violence was what it took to stay alive.
All right, now, what I'm going to show you is brutal, okay? It's not dog. This is the real deal. It is, for most people, very repugnant, the fact that you're actually going to practice killing, all right? And it takes repetitive training to break down the barriers to the concept of killing, okay? In the infantry, everything is about killing.
It's quite a shift in your thoughts and your feelings and all this thing to realize that, hey, you're going to have to maybe kill somebody with your knife.
Now, the philosophy is very simple. There's you and there's me, and it's going to be you, and as sure as hell it's going to be me. That's all you need to know.
In a close combat situation, you either kill the enemy or he kills you. That is the real deal, okay? And if you cannot find it in yourself to utilize that skill, you will lose in the real deal.
Oh yeah, we knew how to use it and where to use it. But it's one thing to do that and use it on a dummy, and another thing to perhaps sneak up on a German sentry and put your arm around his neck and stick him in the kidneys.
I never worried about the, you know, morality or any of that stuff. I just knew that I was coming back, and I was pretty sure the other guy wasn't.
First action, you can hold the knife so the blade's parallel ground. You come in here. See when I hit him, what happens to his body? Okay, that's the one side. Here. Okay, that's the other side. All right, what's in this area right here? What's right here? Kidneys.
I'd say any real infantry soldier has to learn how to use a weapon like this, because if it comes to this kind of weapon, and this is all you have, if you're not, the people we're going against definitely know how to use one of these. So
all the training was done with naked weapons, naked bayonets, naked knives. We had the knives. The knives were very, very sharp. So he told you that getting cut was not a big deal. Getting killed was a big deal. You might get a cut, a superficial cut of some kind, but you were going to kill this person.
When I come on the guy, in.
We were taught how to come in back of a soldier, enemy soldier, and pull his head back and cut the jugular. And how to do that effectively by putting your knee in the back of the soldier, and how to do it very quietly.
You get it in and you bury it up to the thumbprint. In order to get out, you're going to go back and forth like this inside the guy, eviscerate a big hole to pull it out, because how many of you guys ever got a goat? A deer?
Deer.
What happens to it? It sucks on, so you make a hole, right? Eviscerate, pull it out. Damn, you got to love this, right?
And most of these men do. Violence is their trade, and they can handle Wolf's casual cruelty, with one exception. Kevin Hansen is leaving. Something's come up, he says. I've got to go.
These guys were tough. This equipment that they use is raggedy. It's, by today's standards, I mean, if we were using our own equipment, this would be easy. And their equipment was raggedy, you know, all this wool and this heavy equipment, and these guys were tough, hands down. I mean, these guys had to have been the toughest people in the war.
Despite the best efforts of the program producers, Kevin went home at the end of the third day. The hand-to-hand combat hurt him. Bill Wolf scared him. Too intense, too angry, too real.
Yeah, well, moral of the story is don't send your sons and daughters off to war if you don't want them to learn it.
Ready on the right?
Right side's ready.
Left. Stand by. Go.
After months of being taught how to kill, the Devils Brigade was literally at the end of their rope. These were hard men who had signed on for action, but all they'd had was endless training.
Well, the rough training encourages one to want to get out of the training and into the action.
Rumors began to spread. A mission was in the wind.
Well, we pretty well knew that we were going to go to Norway.
Allied intelligence had learned Germany was moving quickly on their atomic bomb project. Nazi scientists were making heavy water at a research facility deep in a Norwegian fjord. The Devils Brigade was tasked to destroy it.
That was Louis Mountbatten's idea. Same guy that was pushed the Dieppe raids too. So
the mission, called Operation Plow, was a mess right from the start.
It seems to me it was a rather strange mission.
Oh, I think it's the usual military screw up.
Particularly since the final plan to deposit us into Norway had not been worked out.
We knew it was a suicide mission. If you can imagine how dumb people can be. We knew it was a suicide mission. If you're going to parachute into a place like Norway and you're going to ski and blow up a power plant, which is defended by Germans who are very skilled in winter warfare because they've been fighting in Russia. And where were you going to go? There was only one place to go. If you were in the 1st Regiment, you would go to Sweden, except that Sweden didn't want you.
Story may be right. It might have been a suicide mission. All I'm saying is none of us thought so.
The American Army had built a prototype snow machine to carry men and equipment, the Weasel. But with a top speed of 30 miles per hour and almost no armor, the Weasel was every infantryman's worst nightmare.
The vehicle we had, the Weasel, the only bomber that could handle it was a Lancaster, and the Lancaster was under the control of the Brits, who did not want to trust their great new bomber to such a mission.
Operation Plow was cancelled when the Norwegian government objected to the plan. The resistance eventually destroyed the plant, and the Devils Brigade was sent back to Montana.
Squad, at the ready! Advance!
The only brigade members who'd seen any action were the Canadians who had fought in France early in the war.
Then we had battle drill training, which was imported from Canada, Canadian Army, which worked very well for the Special Service Force. It gave us fire and movement, where one group is protected by the fire that's laid down by another group, and then when they're in their position, then that group moves up, so on.
Enemy 12 o'clock! 75 yards!
The brigade worked relentlessly on the fire and movement drill. Suppressing fire from one flank allowed the other to close on the enemy.
Take a bad one, let's go!
Fire and movement became the basic infantry squad tactic of the Second World War. Even today, it's taught at military colleges around the world. These soldiers have all done this type of exercise many times. But in this age of unlimited firepower, attacking an enemy position with only 8 rounds in the magazine was harder to do than they thought.
Hey, unfix it.
Welcome to 1942. Wow. Boy, did we learn a few things, guys?
Yeah.
I have a satchel bag filled with freaking grenades because I had 6 rounds left and I resupped over here on the right.
I was done. I only had 4 mags to start with.
Okay, so in other words, you got to get a slower rate of fire to suppress when you're moving. You need to save it for the assault line so you can do suppressive fire, yeah?
And the counterattack.
And the counter. Okay, it's not bad. Everybody hold the right hand out. Is it shaking? Yeah. Damn, mate, guess what that is?
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline.
It goes away after a while.
All right, all right.
All right, gents, there's 3 issues we need to deal with tonight. We need to get a general feeling of the training so far. I know we only
1 week into training, and the instructors are not happy.
We're looking also at some schedule changes, and I have some concern about 3 individuals that I observed today. I'll bring up those.
3 soldiers in particular have caught their attention.
Big concern about Young, George, and Pierce. Young is the guy that apparently doesn't care about anything. Twice today I told him to fix his equipment, and basically he told me that he didn't care and he got somebody else to fix it for him. And his word, well, I don't care, just fix it the way you want. He asked him where he wanted it on the belt. He said, I don't care. George is the tall one with the glasses. I think he's in 3 sections. I would like you to keep an eye on him on 2 different occasions today. He wasn't on time. Even though I gave them a 15 minutes warning, he still had his boots off and he just didn't care. He is slower than slow, believe me. I'm not saying slow mentally. I'm saying you tell him to do something, and it's just like 10 times today I said 5 meters apart, 5 meters apart, and everybody, and I was like shoulder to shoulder with him, and I was purposely, and he was the only guy basically touching the rucksack with a buddy ahead of him. I think we have a concern with this guy. The 3rd one is Mr. Pierce. Maybe he just need a fire under his butt, but right now he's just not keeping up.
Mr. Pierce is Spencer Pierce, a tough kid from Toronto who joined the army after the police caught him rappelling from a bridge.
Apparently, the first sergeant thinks I have an attitude, but lots of people tend to think that. We'll find out. Maybe he can actually get to know me before he thinks something like that.
To get Spencer and the others back on track, the instructors have decided to conduct a snap inspection.
Joe, what detonated over here?
Anything in there?
That was a question, Joe. I got it.
No.
Did you get away with a rack that looked like this anywhere else in the military?
It's negative, son.
Okay, so we're not going to get away with it here, right?
Roger.
All right. Don't want you to be embarrassed if somebody...
Have you wore those?
No, sir. I don't blame you.
There you go.
Yes, sir. May I take a look?
All the kit is good to go?
Or somebody else? Okay. First sergeant. All right, I got to ask. I've heard this nasty rumor about you having a electric toothbrush.
I do have an electric toothbrush.
Where on earth is that?
It's over in the shed.
Oh, it is? Okay, what are you using now?
I've got a standard bristle brush.
Okay.
Well, outstanding. Good
What
for
about
you.
your kit?
Good for you.
The soldiers in this camp
thing I got
all
is this
hope to be selected for the Devils Brigade mission in Europe. But the instructors have been told to cut anyone not measuring up. And Joe, Spencer, and Scott Young are in their line of fire.
What we're going to do now is we're going to talk a little bit about the mission for tonight. Basically, what our mission is tonight is an ambush. In this scenario, what we've got is we've got a 2-vehicle...
The squad has been ordered to conduct a mission the brigade did many times in battle. Ambush a convoy and kill the occupants.
Moleskin Mountain, whatever. Fall right down here and come on out to the tower, okay? Those 2 vehicles will be lightly armed, only just a few individuals in it. So basically, we want both trucks destroyed and whatever occupants are in there. They're coming through, I already said.
The art of the ambush is in the planning. Danny Hassel, the U.S. Ranger, has done this type of planning before.
Go across the road, send 2 guys up. They go through, sweeping through bodies and all that. Staying together though, man, because you never know who somebody might still be alive. I don't know if we're gonna have to go up there and show you.
You got one searcher and one guy.
Exactly, so one guy's watching. I like personally the same 2 that go up there are also demo guys. Just like in the force, you know they all knew that. So instead of sending everybody up there, the 2 guys that are searching are now demo guys as well.
This will be the first time the group has worked together, and the men are focused. But the gods of war are fickle, and many a soldier has died on a simple mission just like this.
There's always the unexpected. No matter how careful the planning is, it's sort of like defensive driving. You anticipate that the guy ahead of you is going to do something stupid, so you be ready for that.
In 1942, this is what the soldiers would have seen as they set up their ambush. But with the low-light lenses today's special forces use, This is how the same scene looks. Danny's plan is to divide the convoy and assault each vehicle individually. So an explosive charge is laid across the road, primed to go off as the first vehicle passes. Approaching the trap, an armored personnel carrier and a truck with a .50 caliber machine gun in the back. From the outset, things go wrong. The charge to separate the vehicles fails to go off. The convoy does not stop. It's time for Plan B. Only there is no Plan B, and the chaos of war ensues. Even though the weapons are only firing blanks, it's clear the machine gun controls the battle. The squad is caught in the open. In a real firefight, they'd have taken heavy casualties.
All right, one dead crowd in the front seat. They got through.
These men are all professional soldiers, and they know the ambush did not go as planned. But they adapted to the changing circumstances.
Was in line right here. So these two vehicles did what I didn't want them to do. So I had the left side of the assault to vehicle number 1 over here, and the right side went with me and assault through over here for vehicle 2.
I gave you guys a very rough operations order, just basically a mission. And I saw several times when things screwed up, but you adapted fairly well. I went with the Alpha team. The demo didn't work. Remember, P stands for plenty. That's one of those things there. When the assault started, we divided, good on you, patrol leader, you divided the assault element to take on multiple targets. This was good stuff. Good stuff. Yep. Is there anything you think we need to do better on the next one?
Me and Angelo, for our team, there was no reason why we couldn't strap double the amount of ammo to our backs. Like, we both should have had a
P
satchel.
for plenty. That's what I was going to ask. What is
Yeah, that's what I said to you when we pulled. As soon as I was there, I'm like, P for plenty.
You know, we aren't used to using these weapons, but that's all a part of, you know,
training and rehearsing.
That's what it's all about. So you guys know to take this back, and the weapons you use and the things you do every time. Just keep doing it over and over. Nobody's going to be just perfect at it. You know, perfect practice makes perfect. It's not just practice makes perfect. You understand that? So, and this was a learning experience, guys. This wasn't a real thing, so we have to be thankful for that, and nobody was hurt. We all came home, right?
The men of the 1st Special Service Force were the elite soldiers of their time. They too understood the need for perfect practice, but they also needed action. Finally, in the summer of 1943, the unit received battle orders. The Devils Brigade was going to war. The men had trained in the snow, in the bush, and in the mountains. So the Army sent them to sea.
If you see something, let me know down there!
In combat, The first thing to die is often the plan. And on this mission, things have gone wrong from the start.
Hey, Albert, I got nothing. They're not moving anymore.
These men are Canadian and American soldiers on a training exercise in Montana. They're here to learn how to fight like the first unit of Special Forces troops did back in 1942. The Army called those men the 1st Special Service Force, but history remembers them as the Devils Brigade. Summer, 1942. The Devils Brigade arrives in Helena, Montana. The soldiers were a mixed group of Canadians and Americans. Some were outcasts from their regular units. Others had more ambition than brass-button Army life could satisfy.
They didn't like the Army. They didn't like officers. They didn't dislike our officers, don't get me wrong. They disliked officers that were, we called rear echelon officers.
Within a few months, the training would turn the men into an aggressive hunter-killer unit who, in Churchill's words, would leave a trail of German corpses behind them.
Oh, it scared the hell out of them. They were just scared were really scared of us.
The basic weapon of the Devils Brigade was designed by a Canadian, John Garand. In fact, the Garand M1 became the standard rifle of the U.S. Army. The Garand was widely considered the most effective infantry rifle of the Second World War. A semi-automatic 30-06 with 8 rounds in the magazine, the clip ejected when the last round was fired. With a 24-inch barrel and weighing just over 9 pounds, the Garand was deadly to a range of 3,000 meters.
I liked the Garand very much. The idea of putting a clip of 8 bullets into that rifle and squeezing the trigger 8 times, but then after the 8th round was expelled, the block would stay open and you had to load quick another clip of ammunition to it and start firing away again.
The Mauser 98K was the German counterpart to the Garand. First adopted by the Wehrmacht in 1934, 14 million Mausers were used by the German army. The bolt-action 5-round had a slower rate of fire than the Garand, but weighing just 8 pounds, it was lighter and easier to clean. With an attachable high-powered scope, the Mauser became the weapon of choice for German snipers.
Send it!
Chris Bird is one of the best shots in the unit.
Ready. Send it! Okay, left. 2 right, correction, 2 right, and give me 3 more up.
The instructors think he has the potential to become a sniper.
Ready? Send it!
It'd probably be a year or so before I would say anything, because to recommend him forward. But if he maintained that, we got him out and did some more skill sets, got him to see how he handled situations, put a little stress on him, deprived of sleep, put him out for 3 or 4 days working, carry and bounce and just go on different missions and just see how he handled the stress for about 3, 4, 5 days. If he handled that, he'd be recommended forward.
Chris can hit a target on the range, but he's never fired in combat. And a sniper must be willing to do the unthinkable and then do it again.
Everybody will shoot once, but will they shoot a second and third time? Can they live with that fact? When we were taught, if you see a young child walking across a bridge at 10 o'clock in the morning and your orders are that no one should cross that bridge, what should you feel? And the proper answer was recoil, because no one crosses.
Recoil. The men of the Devils Brigade may not have agreed, but they would have understood.
I think it was Eric Blair, you know, his pen name was George Orwell, right? He said that, I'm paraphrasing, but we sleep soundly at night because rough men stand ready to do violence on our behalf. So that's a key part of being a soldier. You have to be ready to, you have to be ready to take another person's life. And of course, there's nothing morally wrong with a soldier doing his job.
Most of these soldiers have taken leave from their units to do this training. This is their vacation. They've come out of respect for the men who ran this course a lifetime ago. But they've also come to test themselves. Scott Young, a Canadian private from the Queen's York Rangers, has pushed himself too hard.
I slid down the rope too fast. Well, I climbed up, right? And then I went down, and I guess I went too fast, and I didn't feel that, I don't know, I didn't know that I was hurt until I was at the bottom. And yeah, I looked at my hand, and it was bleeding all over the place, and yeah.
The brigade was ruthless in cutting men who missed training. Even a small injury like this meant a ticket home. Two months after pitching their first tent, 259 Canadian officers and men had been returned to their units, almost half their original number. Many went home on stretchers.
Didn't matter who you were, if you had a broke a leg or broke an arm or something, you were gone. Our commanding officer, Colonel McQueen, he was a great guy. And he made his first jump and broke his leg, and that was the end of him. By the time you would have healed, the training was gone. It was on to something else.
Scott's injury means he too will miss training, so the instructors have decided to send him home.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, but, you know, it blows, because, like, I was so stupid for doing that. Like, I don't know, I'm pissed right now. I just, such a bad mood. I've been in a bad mood since it happened. It sucks. Very disappointed. I'm really disappointed that happened in the first place. You know, if I could turn back time and change it, I definitely would, because it really hasn't, I don't know, it's really been a big disappointment. That's about it. So I don't know, I'm gonna go get my other stuff, and I'll see you guys later.
As the summer of 1943 wore on, the Devils Brigade, created to destroy the Nazi heavy water project, a mission canceled at the last minute, spent its days keeping fit and doing public relations. Although the men had developed a strong affection for Helena, where many would settle after the war, explaining the flamethrower to housewives was not what they'd signed up for.
And I'm sure that our commanding officer was afraid that if he didn't find us something for us to do, we would, you know, we'd lose it. We'd lose the esprit de corps, we'd lose the desire, etc. He had to find something for us to do.
But matters would take a life of their own, courtesy of the Imperial Japanese Navy. Following their victory at Pearl Harbor, Japan expanded aggressively across the Pacific, sending occupation forces as far west as the Aleutian Islands, off the coast of Alaska. As this Japanese newsreel shows, the next stop was San Francisco. These Japanese commandos were the first invaders to set foot on American soil since Canadians did in the War of 1812. The occupation of the Aleutians was a propaganda victory for Tokyo and a humiliation for Washington. The Devils Brigade was ordered to get them back. Allied intelligence estimated as many as 12,000 Japanese troops held the main island of Kisa. With the memory of the bloody battle at Guadalcanal on their minds, the brigade expected a fight to the death.
And we were quite prepared that we would lose a lot of people if the Japanese put up the same kind of fight.
At the spearhead of the invasion, the Devils Brigade 1st Regiment led the assault in an armada of rubber boats, while the 2nd Regiment, the airborne unit, waited nervously.
The 2nd Regiment was to make a parachute jump onto Kisa in support of the seaborne landing. And I was in the 2nd Regiment, so we prepared for the jump. We got on the planes around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, waiting for the dawn and the call to come.
So we paddled ashore and in the dark, and strangely enough, just before we got to the shore, the moon came out. The first time we'd seen it in about 2 weeks up there, and it displayed a whole lot of rubber boats if somebody was looking.
We were really sitting ducks most of the time on the water. And on the way up, we passed a Japanese machine gun position which had been vacated. And I thought as we went by it, thank God there isn't a Japanese machine gunner in there because we'd all be dead.
The only enemy soldiers the men came across were casualties of the naval bombardment. After all those months of training, the Devils Brigade took Kisa without firing a shot. The Japanese were gone, leaving still warm coffee and boxes of weather equipment.
The call came that the Japs had gone and we did not need to make this jump, which was very good news because I pictured myself floating around in the cold Bering Sea.
Once the beachhead had been secured, other units came ashore. Less well-trained and expecting to find an enemy behind every rock, they fired on themselves.
That first night after we were relieved, we had pitched our pup tents and were trying to get to sleep, and we heard all this machine gun fire all night long, and you know, it was dark and foggy, and these guys up above that had taken over from us were just trigger happy. They were shooting their own people. I counted 13 corpses come down the next morning, but there were a lot more than that.
32 men died on Kisa, victims of friendly fire. The Devils Brigade took no casualties, but lessons were learned.
What I took away from Kisa was that no matter how careful the planning is, there's always the unexpected.
Although the unit was still not bloodied, the Kisa adventure served the men well. In the months to come, they would meet an enemy who would not cut and run, but would engage the brigade in some of the bloodiest combat of the Second World War. "10 days into training, and the squad has moved from the base to the bush. The instructors hope a few nights under the stars will help the team come together, so they've laid on a meal of Montana elk. There are two things guaranteed to get all soldiers talking, and one of them is food.
My favorite meal was in, it wasn't basic training, we already were in advanced infantry training. All I remember is it was a little chilly, but it was just downpour. And we had eggs and everything, and it was great. But when your tray starts filling up with water and you try and eat it sitting under a tree shivering, that was about my best one.
The best one I can think of is, it was in the field for us, but it was in the home of an Afghanistan local, and it was goat and rice and flatbread and tea. It was pretty good. I've also had goat at a different place, which was total opposite. Gamey, you know, disgusting. My hands smelled like goat for 6 days, no matter how much I washed them. But this one time I went, they actually prepared it real nice with the spices and everything. It was good.
Living off the land is all part of Special Forces training. But for the men of the brigade, cooking bushmeat over an open fire was nothing special.
They were looking for individuals that had experience being on their own under unfamiliar circumstances.
For people who had outdoor experience, ranchers, trappers, prospectors, woodsmen,
hard rock miners, they were looking for individualistic people who were outdoors people.
These men are also tough soldiers. They can handle hard work. But soldiers need leadership. And in this group, leadership is lacking. Joe George is the only officer in the unit.
Some of these things that we're learning are skills that aren't taught in a modern army. You know, we depend a lot on technology. We depend a lot on our GPS, on our aircraft for insertions, on our Humvees for moving around, and we don't spend a lot of time just out, light infantry on the ground, moving from one place to another, and I think that hurts us.
Open up a vein.
Joe is a lieutenant in the National Guard who fought in Iraq before coming home to teach economics. The instructors are not sure he's the right man to lead the group. Jay Budd, however, has caught their eye. A third-generation Green Beret, Jay has no doubts he'd have made it in the force.
Yes. Pretty confident about that, yes. Still a soldier, doesn't matter. You know, if I'm a soldier in 2006 or 1942, I think it's in my blood to be a soldier.
Leadership was never an issue in the Devils Brigade, as all the officers led from the front. Colonel Robert Frederick, the man who built the unit, was wounded 9 times.
The officers did not hold their rank, nor did the NCOs, because of any service time or any pull or anything else. They all had to earn it. The officers went on the route marches with us, carried the packs, got wet and cold, and still led from the front.
Like the obstacle course 3 times a day.
Tomorrow, these soldiers will face the most dangerous part of their training. They're going mountain climbing. To do it safely, they'll have to work together. A cliff face is no place for debate. The 1st Special Service Force was trained to fight anytime, anywhere. And hanging from the side of a mountain was all part of preparing for the unexpected.
They'd find us a nice cliff, and we had skilled instructors, and we'd learn how to claw our way up and then belay down again.
The mountain climbing actually was a little scarier to me than the parachuting, because you're learning how to rappel down cliffs and climb places that didn't look like they could be climbed.
Most of these soldiers do know how to climb, but none have climbed under fire.
In the case of a unit this size, they're going to have to identify who's the best climbers and who's got the strongest back to carry the supplies. But that you're going to have to switch out those positions because that lead climber is going to get tired after a while. So everybody needs to know how to do this, because you never know when you're going to be put in that position where you need to go up and, you know, scramble through the rocks.
When the Devils Brigade trained here, the men knew if they couldn't make it up cliffs like this, they were out. These soldiers are also climbing under pressure. The instructors have told them they'll cut any man who can't scale this face.
Let's go, young blood.
Rest is easy.
Stick your hands in far and
Easy is not a word Brian Haynes would choose.
I have a very, very bad fear of heights. I don't know, it's just, you know, some people are afraid of spiders, some are afraid of snakes, some are afraid of heights.
No, sorry, as you were. Tension.
Haynes is a drill sergeant in the U.S. Army who's been in many high-stress situations, but few like this.
I feel like every time I move my feet, I feel like I'm gonna fall.
Push with your legs. Got it.
Tension.
Every time I jump out of an airplane or rappel or climb, it's overcoming that fear of heights. That's part of the reason I have such a hard time climbing, is committing myself to, you know, moving. It's very hard to move when you're afraid.
Tension.
Brian, your right
Hey, tension, I'm falling.
I didn't like it. It frightened me. Climbing was, the parachute jumping never bothered me, but the rock climbing I found scary as hell. I could visualize myself lying at the bottom of the hill with, you know, with my head split open.
Tension.
Now get to your feet. You're doing good, man. Good
Tension.
60 feet up, Brian Haynes knows the feeling.
There you go.
Tension.
Good job. Good job, bud. All right, Brian. Good job, big man. Woo! Good job.
Nice one. I don't know what techniques I use to overcome my fear. I just do it. You just kind of reach down inside yourself and say, no matter what, I'm going forward.
Assaulting a cliff face in wartime takes more than courage. It takes careful planning. Who carries the water, the extra ammo, the machine gun? How will the wounded get down? And where are the enemy sentries?
They had scouts, which they relied on to go ahead and scout out the battlefield. And I'm sure that they identified the best climbers in the group, and they sent those people out as the lead climber.
Chris Bird is everyone's choice for lead climber in this group. He's the type of soldier who'd have been at home in the brigade. Strong, agile, but most of all, Chris is fearless.
Good job, Chris. It's actually the first time I've actually climbed a rock or a face like this.
Tension.
The only other practice or experience I've ever had was on a climbing wall in Regina, which is pretty flat terrain.
In 1942, lead climbers had no second chances. Chris does. He has one small safety rope.
I think most of the difficulty was in the mental aspect of it, the idea of going up the hill with no protection immediately.
You mean the fear?
The concern. You take your steps a little bit slower. You make sure you tie the knots properly.
Chris, Brian, and the others all made it up this cliff, but most had to fight for every inch. When the brigade climbed here, each man carried his rifle, his water, and a 60-pound combat pack.
I think it's part and parcel of the whole package, you know, the training package. It's kind of all integrated together, and the end product just comes out as a guy who'll do anything he's told to do and do it well.
And part of that training were combat patrols like this. The soldiers have been ordered to scout a local bridge. But the bridge is defended by a unit of the National Guard familiar with these hills. And the squad is aware of the potential for an ambush. But these are experienced soldiers who've patrolled enemy territory before. They know the key to avoiding detection is in how you read the land.
Well, this terrain, I don't think is any more or any less dangerous than other terrain. We've got good cover and concealment. The trees are giving us concealment, as well as the thicker trees will give us cover. We are moving up ground, or uphill, so we have the low ground, but it's relatively safe. We can go undetected, I think, for the most part.
Special Forces missions are built on 4 principles: planning, reconnaissance, assault, extraction. These rules are the same today as they were in 1942. Technology can provide an overview, but there is no better way to evaluate an enemy position than by putting human eyes on the target.
Send a couple people left, right, forward, because we need as much eyes on as we can. And here we can see 3/4 of the bridge, but not the first quarter. So we're going to send somebody on our left flank so they can observe at a better angle, and somebody on our right flank. So we're looking at composition of the bridge, size, dimensions, length, construction, that kind of thing, and if it's defended.
The men survey the bridge without incident. Brian Haynes takes notes from which a sand table model will be built to plan the attack, and the squad withdraws. This patrol has gone well. They have been both skillful and lucky.
Where we're shooting from, Bud, is in front of the sandbox.
These soldiers all know their way around guns. Some have fired in combat. A few have killed.
How many shots?
Each man thinks he's the best shot in the unit. The instructors have decided to find out. They will test them. First up is the Green Beret, J. Bud.
Way high.
The men will fire 7 shots with their .45s from about 15 feet. Killing range.
Good round.
Next is a Canadian soldier, Scott Hollywood, who, as a Winnipeg police officer, carries a pistol every day.
As I said, we don't really train for groupings. We space them out because if you hit a guy numerous times in one spot, all the trauma is in that area. So he doesn't know he's been shot. Well, he knows he's been shot, but he probably thinks he just got shot one time. Whereas if you space him out across the center of mass of his body, it's more trauma, more stopping power, because he realizes he's got multiple wounds in him, and he probably won't want to fight anymore.
That one missed the target. Loosen your grip and regrip your...
There's oil all over the handle.
That's as good an excuse as any.
Look at that.
That's... I think your buddy's got you on that one. Holy smokes.
Next, Chris Bird, who's out to prove he's as handy with a pistol as he is with a rifle.
Bird, you're a hell of a climber. You can't hit the broadside of a barn. That's better. Good job. Good job.
Oh, man. Not good. I think I'm the only one that hit the center, though. These are my first 3 that I pulled, and then these are my last 4.
And which one am I shooting at?
You're usually the one that says Albert on it.
Oh, right there.
Top left,
Same.
I think.
You know, it's kind of a contrived situation. You know, in a combative situation, you want a quick draw and put some rounds down range, try for 2 in the chest and 1 in the head.
Joe George, the thinking man soldier, has found an advantage. He's realized there is no time limit between shots.
You seem very focused. What are you thinking about when you squeeze that trigger?
My next tour in Iraq.
I think it's right with the last one.
Oh, was it? Sweet.
Yep. Yeah. That was... Okay, you're starting to breathe a little.
Next time I go to Iraq, hopefully I'm the commander of Alpha Company 1st to 163rd Infantry. I'll be carrying a 9mm.
Okay, that's damn good shooting there, Joe. One you threw up here. Where'd Bill go? I think there's an extra one in there. Either that or you missed altogether. When I was looking, I think you put 2 right in here, so I actually think you got a 3rd one there. Nice. Yeah, that's not bad. So,
Bill, how's it look so far, Bill?
Well, average.
Just average?
Yeah.
Nothing super?
No.
Bill Wolf, the hand-to-hand combat instructor, has gone along with this competition reluctantly. He believes soldiers should be taught to shoot by instinct, to kill by reflex.
Say, it's not how you train soldiers. It's how you train people to die, okay? Because you don't have that much time to stand there and take a sight picture all day long. You're gonna have bullets coming at you, so you gotta be quicker and you gotta be more instinctual.
What we did here is a target shoot, but it's not the way to survive in combat, all right? You all know that. We've talked about it. You did your instinctive shooting with pistols. That's the way you survive a shootout. One of our best scorers here was the LT, or George. It took you 3 minutes to fire off 7 rounds. You know, 3 seconds is a lifetime in a firefight, okay? All right, guys, so I guess our winners would be, who's the top dog there? Sergeant Wolf, did you decide out of this mess?
LT.
You the man, LT.
Good
job. Plenty of time. Good job.
Yeah, LT, if you can do that in combat with bullets coming after you, I'll follow you anywhere.
There you go.
Morale is crucial in any group of soldiers, and Joe's victory is met with humor and respect for outthinking them all. The bridge assault is on for tonight. Joe George has been given a chance to prove he can lead it.
So our demo plan is, first of all, to crush or use cutting charges on the bridge on this span at this junction, here, and here. That will separate the top part of the bridge from this support.
The team won't actually destroy anything, but they will have to overpower the sentries and plant dummy explosives on the trestles. When the brigade did this type of training in 1942, most of Montana knew the force meant business.
We'd had intensive demolition training. We learned how to place charges, and we also learned the use of TNT, the use of dynamite sticks.
Their dynamite was soon replaced with a new and experimental explosive, RS.
The RS, the Ryan Special, which was long sticks of explosive, and it was joined by a product called Primacord, which was an explosive core.
RS was a first-generation plastic explosive, easy to use, hard to forget. When the men attack the bridge, they'll have to wire replica RS to the trestles. But the instructors have introduced a last-minute twist. The squad will have just 1 hour to neutralize the sentries and plant the charges before a train crosses the ravine. If the train arrives before the explosives are in place, the mission will have failed. But tonight is to be a night of cross and double cross. These men are special force soldiers who rarely play by the rules. They've decided to do what the Devils Brigade would have done: adapt. Afraid the instructors have tipped off the National Guard, the squad has begun the attack early. And Scott Hollywood, disguised as a jogger, has ambushed the National Guard sentries.
I played Joe Jogger, freaking out what the hell's going on. When he turned his attention away from me, I drew my pistol from my back, fired at him, took his weapon and his ammo, so now I got a little bit more firepower, and I linked up with my boys here.
Got you now, biatch.
Go underneath.
Hand it to me. I got my fingers under there. Use rocks.
Cleared. What do you got, Albert? Nothing.
Okay, I got him.
The men are only firing blanks, but their surprise has worked. The National Guard is beaten.
Okay. Okay, so it's ready to go. The pin's already out of it. All you gotta do is pull it.
Ready? We're gonna rig this up.
This the one?
This is ours.
You got anything?
The squad is now fighting the clock. The 1 hour time limit is tight. So Joe's elaborate demolition plan is dropped in favor of simply getting the job done.
Just getting these lined up, bro. Whenever you're ready.
Good? Stand. I think we're gonna have some slippage. Got it? Up top, Charlie's gonna derail the train. Albert stayed up top. He lit that when the train was 2 minutes out, and it was a 1 minute fuse. So to go off 1 minute before the train hits the rail, they'll have no time to stop. It's gonna derail. Now the charges on the trestles we're having a little bit of a problem with, but we still got them in time. They're not as pretty as we'd hoped, but they're gonna work. And the fuses are burning on trestle 3. We got a rigging. Where's Albert at?
Devil 3.
All right, Albert. Let's go, Albert.
Who's that?
Joe.
Joe, come on.
Go, Joe.
Gotta move. It's gonna go.
Okay, no more. You guys go.
Go.
Spencer.
No more. Go.
Where's Spencer?
Let's go. Come on.
Come on, Spencer.
No more talking. Go.
8, 9, 10, 11. Albert, you're 12. Let's go. We're good.
Let's go.
I guess it would be going off like right now. So we're clear of the objective, and looking forward to a long march home. That's what it looks like anyway.
Not too bad. We had a couple machine gun nests that we were surprised by. So Murphy kicked in kind of like I expected. But we still made the time.
These men are elite soldiers, and their training kicked in. The mission was a success. The aftermath of combat is always the same, no matter time or place. Moments of reflection and a thankfulness that it's over. Some of these men have fought in firefights in Afghanistan or Iraq. And although tonight's battle was only a war game, no soldier likes to lose. Especially not this squad, who are men of courage and men of honor. Men determined to earn the respect of the Devils Brigade. By the late summer of 1943, the Devils Brigade had become a superb fighting unit. Colonel Frederick had done his job. But earlier in the year, the Devils Brigade had been locked in purgatory without a mission of their own. So Frederick had done the one thing fighting men hate to do. He'd written a memo. Unless employment is found in the near future, the force should be discontinued. Frederick's memo had ricocheted from Washington to London, where it landed on Churchill's desk. Long a supporter of special operations, Churchill was not happy. He wrote, "On no account dissipate the force. It may alter the whole strategic position of the war." To which Roosevelt himself responded, proceeding vigorously. Frederick's gamble had paid off. The Devils Brigade was going to GI heaven.
A bomber crew on a GI vacation arrives at an Air Force rest camp on the Italian seashore. Listen.
The Air Force has always had it easy, or so the infantry says. America's newsreels made the Italian campaign seem like one long vacation.
Fishing. Salute. Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle.
Those with boots on the ground knew otherwise.
Infantrymen of the 1st Special Service Force carry out a successful daylight raid on an advanced German position in the Anzio area. Men surround the German outpost in no man's land. This position is 400 yards in advance of the enemy lines.
In the mud and blood of Italy, in a dozen battles, over 100 hilltops, the men of the Devils Brigade would earn their medals and build their reputation. But they would pay a terrible price.
And the fog lifted a minute, and there was nothing but bodies around, which hadn't even been able to remove them.
Well, going past those dead guys was, I think, the sobering moment for everybody. Then is when you start realizing, hey, that could be me.
Yeah, I sort of went this way and he went that way. I knew he was dead. Guy gets hit with a close mortar bomb in the open. You don't need to look for a pulse.
In the summer of 1942, a squad of soldiers learned how to parachute jump the hard way.
You know, in the 40s, hardly anybody had flown a plane. They said, get in the truck and we'll take you over to the airport and give you chutes and we'll give you a ride. So we got up in this damn C-47 and the guy said, stand up, hook up, stand in the door. And out we went. Nobody had ever been in an airplane before. But people did volunteer because they wanted to go for a ride, you see.
And if you lived, you were qualified. This was how the men of the Devils Brigade earned their jump wings.
You done your first jump within a week. You didn't have time to think about it.
60 years later, another group of soldiers will do what those legendary fighters once did. Put aside their fear and roll the dice.
I'm starting to get the butterflies a little bit. You know, it's the first time jumping, of course, like the rest of the guys, but I'm sure we're all gonna be scared.
These men will do their very first parachute jump from 11,000 feet. Not by static line, but free fall. Why? Because that's what it took to be part of the Devils Brigade. Anzio, January 22nd, 1944. The U.S. Fifth Army invades the Italian coast south of Rome.
If you're going to fight a war, let's fight it on somebody else's land, not on ours.
We were going to take the war to the enemy.
By the end of the first day, 36,000 men had come ashore at the cost of just 13 lives. As the soldiers took control of the port, they discovered, to their amazement, they had caught the Germans off guard.
I thought it was great. I said, at last I'm really going to do something here, you know.
The men believed they'd be in Rome within the week. They were wrong.
Germans were the best soldiers in the world. They were the best trained, they had wonderful experience, and they had, you know, that fanatical faith.
What are all those things coming in? They said, those are shells from the Germans. Ooh, I volunteered for this?
The Allies are stalled at Anzio, but patrol clashes are frequent. Here's a German outpost.
By the time the first Special Service Force came ashore on day 11, the invasion had ground to a halt. The German commander, Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, brought the 70,000 veteran troops he had in reserve to the battle and surrounded the landing force.
The battlefield was flat, as you know. There wasn't a hill over there to hide behind or anything else. You're sitting on a static line. The Germans evidently didn't want to wipe out the beachhead right after they got in there.
When the Devils Brigade went into action, news of their arrival rippled across the front lines. Even the enemy heard the men had joined the battle.
Die zijn uit de barvoers.
They snuck up on our advanced posts, and the guards didn't even notice someone was approaching.
Die waren zo richtig
They were quite agile, like leopards sneaking up. And before the guard even noticed, he'd had his throat cut.
Dat had hals doorgesneden.
The first Special Service Force was just a few hundred men in the midst of thousands, but they left an indelible mark.
We owned no man's land. That was ours. The force was facing the Hermann Göring Division, which had 18,000 men approximately with armor and everything else. And by aggressively patrolling no man's land, capturing people, killing them, letting them know that we own no man's land, they thought we were a much larger force. They thought we were a division in size. They had no idea that there were so few of us.
This is where the 1st Special Service Force learned their killing skills. Helena, Montana. And these soldiers are fighting the Devils Brigade way, with no mercy.
Grab like so. This is sissy. Grab like this. See the expression on the LT's face? Here's nothing. That's either do it right or die. Got it?
Many of these men are combat veterans. Some are Canadians who fought in Afghanistan. Others, Americans who've recently returned from Iraq. They've come to the original Devils Brigade training camp to spend a month in 1942, learning how those legendary soldiers trained.
This hand here, you want to frame the weapon. Don't be up like this. Please, please, please. Get it down in here. Pretend you're back at Sears, right? Start shaking. From movement, they can't detect movements. Underneath. I'm right under there. Ah! The finger. Boom. Right?
The combative systems we've been learning are very violent, very aggressive. There are many things that are very applicable, especially in today's modern battlefield. You develop a sense of aggression, and you develop a confidence in your ability to close with and destroy the enemy. You know, it's totally different when you've been trained with something like a bayonet, where you'd actually look at a person and insert the bayonet into the soft parts of the person's body and kill the person that way. It's a totally different mindset, a totally different frame of view, and it's a frame of view that we need on the modern battlefield.
When you're working your block, you need a wider angle. So you block wide, balls. Okay, there's the knife trapped. Okay, take it off him, all right? Because this is not going to be a...
Bill Wolfe teaches hand-to-hand combat to the Canadian Army. He's the type of instructor the brigade would have liked.
You ready?
I love the balls.
Wolfe specializes in knife fighting. And even though many of these soldiers have seen combat, killing with knives, the trademark of the brigade, is not something they're used to.
When you're blocking, Mike, if he's coming at you from the side, try not to expose this because... Okay, your armpits. So when you're coming in, do your block. Wedge it off to here. That traps out the arm here. Okay, and block it. Try to keep your elbows inside your body, not out.
I'll do that tight, yeah.
He's taught, that's better.
Hand-to-hand training with Sergeant Wolfe is outstanding. It's intense, it's good, it teaches you some interesting skills. Some of the things that he does, we've never really addressed before in training. It's almost like learning the, kind of like the darker arts of learning how to kill in combat with hands, knife, bayonet, whatever.
The Devils Brigade was led by an aggressive young American, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Frederick, who personally designed their killing knife, the V-42.
I thought that was pretty neat. That was a dagger, it was really sharp, and we used that for everything. And we was always taking a thing and we'd sharpen it on the side of our jump boot, on the leather boot. We'd keep it nice and sharp.
With a skull cracker on the end of the handle, the 7.5-inch blade was carefully shaped to allow easy insertion between the ribs. Frederick had created the Devil's very own knife. Midnight. The soldiers are going on a mission to test their stalking skills. Their task? Infiltrate an enemy camp, dispose of the sentries, kidnap an officer. The Devils Brigade called these butcher and bolt missions.
Earlier I had a couple scouts go out to scout out the situation. They came up with a nice sketch here and we threw together a plan. Basically this is an area that we've worked in before, so everybody's familiar with it. And it's the machine gun range area, the jungle lane. This is a trailer or a shed of some sort. Our intel tells us that there's 2 sentries posted outside there, and our target is the general who is residing inside.
At night, we'd get ourselves ready and we'd go out to patrol no man's land just to see what we could scare up. paint our faces and our hands with grease paint, different colors, green, black. We just wore a wool cap, our ammunition belts, and our weapons. That's all we had. Dog tags were taped together. It was quiet.
You have nothing that makes noise. Nothing makes noise. So whenever your foot touches anything, you stop. Because that stick, if it cracks, could give away your position, but it could be a mine. As I say, you use all your senses, and so you're very mentally alert and ready every second. You're like the animal poised ready.
Wait for us to get in position. Okay. What's the approximate time you think it'll take you guys? Approximately, you'll see us. Approximately 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. You'll see us. You guys go ahead. I'm gonna brief the other.
To do these patrols constantly, they thought we were a big, full regiment, which we weren't.
Such a small unit, small though it was, could tie up literally tens of thousands of German troops. Getting in there and causing such a ruckus.
Steal stuff from the Germans, their eggs, their chickens, anything that they could get their bloody hands on, especially their booze.
This one German prisoner of war said, "Geez, we never hear them coming. We never hear them coming. All of a sudden they're there." They called us the Black Devils because they said they never heard us coming.
As Anzio became a stalemate and the regular units dug in, the 1st Special Service Force stalked no man's land, clearing buildings, taking prisoners, ambushing patrols.
One night, 6 of us went out, and we heard that there was a German patrol out there. And sure enough, after about 3 hours, I think it was, I know I was getting cold, we heard him coming down this one ditch. And the sergeant, he waited till that lead guy in that German patrol got within, I'd say, arm's length of him, and he hollered Achtung to him to try to get him to give up. And the German made a mistake of turning around with his Burke gun, and the sergeant opened up, and then we all opened up, and we got all 6 of them.
On the bodies of their victims, the men left a chilling calling card. Stickers, which read in German, "The worst is yet to come."
Frederick's got the idea, as I understand it, and not everybody got the opportunity to use them, but it was very effective. And there was the one situation where apparently this guy was going out on patrol, and he said to the patrol, "Well, we won't kill them tonight. We'll just have fun and put a sticker on them, let them know we were there."
They'd go out and stick the darn things any place, even if they didn't find any Germans. They just stick the sticker out. And I think that put the fear into the enemy quite a bit. The fact that we were crawling around their area, they didn't know or didn't see, and yet in the morning these stickers were there.
And the enemy was terrified. Legend has it a dying German officer scrawled in his diary, "They are everywhere around us, these black devils."
That was strange. That was in that German officer's diary. We can't cope with these devils with their painted faces and their baggy pants. And then the media picked it up and nicknamed us the Devils Brigade.
Finally, after more than 3 months, the Allies broke out of the Anzio beachhead. The 1st Special Service Force led the way.
Our battalion was one of the lead battalions breaking out of Anzio. That was quite an experience. That was a tough fight. First day we were thrown back. We didn't get out at all. And the second day we finally made it.
The only time I was ever close to being bloodthirsty was when we broke out of Anzio and they killed my colonel right beside me. It was all I could do to keep from shooting these guys coming out with their hands up after killing my colonel.
We had a couple of rough battles on the way to Rome. One place there, I thought, my God, we'll be lucky if we'll get through here. Because we were going through I think it was a wheat field. There was nothing to protect us. And the Germans were set up with machine guns and everything. But we made it. We took the machine guns out, and then we moved on into Rome. And going into Rome was a real charge. We had driven the Germans out of the city. The people were wild. They had all sorts of fruit and wine and stuff to give us, and they tried to give it to us, but as soon as a shot fired, they disappeared. And I can remember going up the streets in Rome that morning, and the darn machine gun bullets coming from the Germans were hitting the walls all around, you know, ricocheting around, scaring the pants right off of me. But we got up there, and it was my company had the job of securing 6 or 7 of the bridges across the Tiber. They didn't want the Germans to blow the bridges up, otherwise we couldn't get across. Some of them were charged, ready to blow, but we got them before they blew them. And the next day we had Rome.
Being one of the first units into Rome had its benefits. The Devils Brigade enjoyed a party more than most.
When we would go through any town, Italy or France, you know, the dog faces, as they call us, they got their hang out of their rifle. Goddamn thing, I had enough of this war, you know. And then the Germans had left. Then these girls would come out, girls would come out with wine and some stuff. You know, they had nothing to eat, but they gave us this wine and stuff. By the time this regiment, or whatever company, got to the other side, everybody was drunk. I mean, they were drunk, and they were kissing the girls and everything. The women that was it. That's what we were in the war for women. But you never got involved other than just getting something.
As the veil of fascism lifted, the citizens of Rome celebrated. But for the Devils Brigade, the war was far from over. Hitler ordered Kesselring to fight a war of attrition, to delay the Allied advance for as long as possible. The Devils Brigade, and all the other men they fought beside, paid a terrible price for every inch of Italy.
One of our things that we were taught is when you're moving ahead and taking ground and you got them on the move, try to keep them on the move. Because if you give them time to set up, they got time to do a lot of damage, like setting booby traps or setting up good defenses.
The German army had an extensive catalog of mines, which they used to slow the Allied advance. the Teller mine, the shrapnel mine, the wooden Holtz mine.
A lot of times, a booby trap, if something don't look natural, don't touch it. I mean, if you'd see a deserted house there with something real nice sitting up on top of a dresser or something, something's wrong. What's that doing sitting there, you know?
The townspeople were warned against enemy mines and booby traps, which were in the process of being cleared.
Tens of thousands of booby traps were also left behind. And as they do today, they killed at random. They don't call them booby traps anymore, but rather IEDs, improvised explosive devices.
So once the square pin's pulled, all you gotta do is pull your main safety.
In Afghanistan and Iraq, they're taking a terrible toll on men like these.
So here's our tripwire, and I made it incredibly loose. But just go ahead and pull on that, and I'll try to hold this. See if we get a little bigger. It sounded a little better, didn't it? Okay, in the same chain of ignition.
Angelo Godola is a sergeant in the National Guard who recently lost a family member to an IED in Iraq.
My brother-in-law Paul was killed back in December 21st, 2004, and it has a profound effect on everyone. A loss is expected. You know, soldiers are there to fight for freedom and to fight for their family's welfare and for their country. You know, whether it's insurgents or Nazis or terrorists of any kind, you know, any kind of terroristic regime or whatever you want to call it. But soldiers are there to protect their people, and that's what I do.
Let's say, yeah, exactly.
The instructors have given the squad a simple task: cross this field. But hidden in the grass are tripwires and booby traps, the sort of IEDs the Devils Brigade faced.
We was going out on patrol one night, and the first guy in the line stepped on a foot mine, and it blew his foot off. Now, sometime they snuck in there and put that mine there on a path that we knew that they was pretty sure that we used, you know. Let's face it, they wasn't dumb either, you know, and almost anything they'd booby trap if they had time to do it. And they'd done a lot of it, especially when they'd retreat.
Albert Boucher is a master warrant officer in the Canadian Forces who served in Afghanistan. Despite the technology today's special forces use to find IEDs, the modern battlefield is as deadly as ever. And the rules of survival are the same as they were in the Second World War. Trust your training. Hope you're lucky.
Pressure release. Go around it.
Albert Boucher, a 40-year-old father of 7, put his life on the line to go to Afghanistan.
People often question me about, you know, what were my thoughts on deploying overseas and should we be there? And well, it's not my decision to be there, but what I will tell you is that as a soldier, as a person, I can see the changes that have occurred. There's hope, there's a sense of development, And as a person, as a soldier, as a citizen of the free world, I think that's a good thing. And I think we should be there.
As early as the 16th century in Italy, Leonardo da Vinci was sketching and designing parachutes. But it's only about 10 years since the Russians began to take the parachute seriously as a weapon of attack.
Vigorous training, hazardous duty, for those who want to get into the war quickly. This was how the Devils Brigade sold itself when it went looking for recruits. And there's no faster way to get into a war than jumping in, feet first.
28 men can get out of an aircraft as fast as 18 seconds. There's waves and waves coming over. In other words, there's people jumping right over top of you, and you can steal each other's air, and you can plummet right in like a tent peg. So everything is mental alertness, and you don't have time to daydream, period.
The parachute training the brigade received was rudimentary at best, non-existent at worst.
Okay, there's a few things we want to cover this afternoon. We'll do some flight trainer, we'll talk about the equipment, then we'll talk about how to collapse a chute because it didn't have canopy release on the equipment itself. And then we'll move all the way down there where the mock-up is and do some aircraft drill.
In 1942, the U.S. Army jump school lasted about a month. In the Devils Brigade, it lasted a few days. You jumped twice, and if you could walk away, you were qualified.
The parachutist came up to approximately here with the static line. We'll let it go. Static line would go there. He would keep on going. Jump master would take control of it. He would square himself up, feet apart, nice and relaxed. And when you jump, be careful there. Jump straight out, and away you go. Go!
Basically, you didn't have time. They just had little mock-up towers, and they told you how to put a chute on, how to collapse a chute, about what height should be. You jump out of these mock-up towers to get on the ground. Then they put you on the back of a truck and put the gate down, and you jump off the back of the truck doing about 18 miles an hour, and that's about how you'll get it when you get down. And you didn't have time. Within a week, you'd done your jump. You'd done your first jump within a week. You didn't have time to think about it.
I don't think I was scared. I think maybe I was more curious. But standing in the line, I think I was more concerned with the fact that I was checking the guy ahead to see his equipment was okay. The guy behind was checking my equipment, and I checked my hook on the cable. And when it came time to go, it was bang, 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 we're gone.
I had no idea what was going on, frankly. You don't know what's going to happen next. You know, kind of got your fingers crossed, but all of a sudden, poof, your parachute opens, and you say to yourself, geez, this is pretty nice, and float down.
All these soldiers have their parachute wings. Some have jumped into combat. But there are other men in the squad who've never jumped before. Today, they'll get their chance.
I'm starting to get the butterflies a little bit. You know, it's the first time jumping, of course, like the rest of the guys, but I'm sure we're all going to be scared. But when I go to jump out of the plane, that's going to, you know, really, when it's going to hit me in the stomach, I get the major butterflies before any big event.
The key is with any of these canopy issues is number one, altitude awareness. Okay, so as soon as you get open, check your altitude.
Jay Budd, the Green Beret, has done almost 100 jumps. Many of them what Special Forces call halo jumps. High altitude, low opening.
Distorting the nose a little bit, okay? The key is with this is to do...
Jay has brought the men to a parachute school to do their first jump.
If things go wrong in free fall, you just have to remember to arch. Sometimes on their first jump, when people jump, they try to de-arch a little bit, and when you happen to de-arch, then your problems become worse, and that's when you could possibly tumble and all that. So basically, if things go wrong up there, you just have to arch it out, and that should stabilize you.
A little bit of leg, a little bit more legs here, a little bit more legs. There you go, perfect. Okay, exit.
When the brigade jumped, they didn't have time to arch it out. The men left the aircraft at 1,000 feet without a reserve. If the main chute failed, they were dead. The danger to these men is less, but the challenge the same. Do they have the guts to jump? Albert Boucher is certain that he does.
9,000 feet, check left, check right.
Wait, whoa, whoa, did you see anything for me?
Nope.
Okay, thanks.
Check right.
There we go.
Thumbs up. Heading 7,000 feet. I've bungee jumped before and scuba dived, so I just and lead climbed there a couple days ago, so I just want to do it. I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah, I'd like to just jump. I don't want to wait around too long. I just want to try it.
Great. At least there's no mosquitoes up here, eh? Yeah, right? Hey? Hey? I've been rolling with the Canadians too long.
Old soldiers have a saying, courage is a mystery which comes and goes in moments of action, accidents of choice. On this day, these young soldiers have all chosen to be courageous. They volunteered to do their very first jump, not on a static line, but free fall from 11,000 feet. Chris Bird, the sniper, is first to go. He barely pauses. Andrew Rowe, the 19-year-old from Nova Scotia, shows why the squad calls him the fighting fetus. Angelo Gadola says a quick prayer and trusts that somebody is actually listening. And finally, it's Albert Boucher's turn. Albert has traveled a long way in his military career, from his regiment in Saskatoon to the mountains of Afghanistan to the skies over Montana. Life, he says, is one big adventure.
Free fall is awesome, and I wish it would last longer because you're concentrating on your drills and it just seems to go quick. You can feel like all of a sudden the air got warm, and you say, okay, I must be getting close now. And it was about 7,000, and then 6 lock on and then pull. It was pretty cool. I had a good time. And then when I wanted to mess around with the chute there, because it was a pretty good feeling when you're under the canopy, spinning around there. That was awesome.
With his first jump behind him, Albert is ready for more. He's the type of soldier who'd have been at home in the brigade. Smart and brave, with just a touch of crazy. For almost a month, these men have trained as hard as they ever have before. They've run and climbed, fought and bled. All of it to prepare for the mission which made the Devils Brigade a legend.
Okay guys, 21 days of training has finally come to an end. You've been going through all kinds of training day and night. We obviously lost a couple people. That's part of the training. Now it's time to move on to the next phase. You all know that there was something that you were not told, and this is what we're about to reveal. Just grab the corner. This was the area where the Devils Brigade became so famous. And this is what you've been training for. Your mission will obviously be to do exactly what they did way back then in '43.
The Devils Brigade assault on Mount Defensa was one of the most daring strategic victories of the Second World War. The Germans held the peaks. The Allies wanted them. And wave after wave of infantry died trying to take the mountain. The 1st Special Service Force took Defensa in just a few hours. Joe Glass from Sarnia was one of the first men to reach the top. Lauren Whaling, Joe's best friend, was close behind. And Mark Radcliffe, a young lieutenant from Texas, helped plan the assault. These 3 men survived what was thought to be a suicide mission. They are the human face of courage.
I was with 3rd Regiment, and we were in a gully down below here. We were sitting in there waiting till we might be needed, and all of a sudden, right up above me, a mortar round goes off. I yelled the command to get down and hit the dirt. Well, just as I'm doing that, a round hit right almost in front, not too far away, and I got a piece of shrapnel right between the eyes sticking out, about that big. And I didn't know I had it, it was numb. And they took me down to the aid station down below. And the doctor walked up and he feels around on it and his hands are going like this. And I says, "What are you shaking for?" I says, "I'm the patient." He says, "But you're my first." That's how I started the war. That's the first time I hadn't fired a shot.
The next day, we had to go all the way up here, right up in here, where they put the ropes up in the cliffs. And we went up. The bowl seems to be small there, but we come up right here. And we attacked. And took us 2 hours to take that out. We took all these guys out. We lost a few men, quite a few men, in fact. We done a good job, real good job up here. How can you explain combat? If you've never been in combat, you know you can't explain it. So we just had a good fight, got it over in 2 hours. I lost my company commander and a few good friends. And a guy hit me in the face and the hand. It hit my little finger right there with a bullet. And then it hit the rock and it splattered rock on my face and I couldn't see out of my right eye. So I moved over, got behind this rock about this high. And this one guy, the last guy, he never gave up. And my company commander come up one side of me and Sid Gath on the other. And he said, "How's things going, Joe?" And I said, "Okay." I said, "But whatever you do, don't stick your head above this rock till we get that guy." I was planning on getting some grenades and getting them out the easy way. Because you couldn't, he was a real good marksman. He hit several guys. But they both raised their head at the same time and he got both of them through the brains. The brains splattered out on the ground. So I moved over and talked to Don McKinnon. And he was there and he said, "Jesus, Joe, I'm scared." I said, "Hell, we're all scared. Have a cigarette." I wanted a cigarette bad. So I lit up 2 cigarettes and I bored 2 grenades and it was only 25 feet away from us. So you know how close we were. It was easy to get a grenade in there, but I didn't have any. But I got 2 of them, I think from Sid Gath or Rothman, who were both dead. And then we tried to get them out. And I don't know who got him. But it didn't matter, he was the last guy. But he'd already killed my commanding officer and one of my best friends.
In Defensa's shadow lie the men who died on that brave but terrible morning. Americans and Canadians. Men like Joe's friend, Sid Gath, a farm boy from Manitoba. After the war, Joe, Lauren, and Mark came back to Montana, where they each settled down and lived in peace.
Being a soldier, you're willing to lay your life down for what you believe in, especially if defending your country or freedom. And the soldiers are always in a brotherhood. So with that in mind, I mean, we each have those common qualities or common interests just to be here to, you know, represent them and honor them. So I think there's a pretty damn strong bond between us. And it's incredible to see, you know, we met 3 of them were members of the Devils Brigade, and that was kind of amazing. You know, you're meeting these old men, you know, and they've lived their lives out and they're having trouble walking, but then you see it in their eyes, you know, and I told some of the guys, like, you walk up to them and you shake their hand, and they still have that firm grip. And I mean, the one gentleman, I can't remember his name offhand, but his hand was huge, and his fingers extended up my wrist, and I was like, wow. You know, I'm glad I wasn't on the receiving end of this guy when you know, World War II was going on. But you see it in their eyes that they're proud that they were part of it, and they're even more proud that somebody's willing to represent them here. Where's his box?
As any soldier will tell you, the real work of Army life begins when the training ends.
I can't put it down. Did you get my frags? No, not yet.
And for this squad, there's plenty of work to do before they leave for Italy.
As far as getting ready for our mission in Italy on Defensa, I think we've come a long way, and I think that the training we did here in the mountains is really going to help us to accomplish our mission overseas. We're really starting to mesh, I think, and all these guys have what it takes to do real missions. I mean, I wouldn't hesitate going on a real mission with any of these guys.
And Defensa will be a mission to test them, because the men will face an actual opponent.
Gut, grundsätzlich zur Orientierung, diese Richtung Norden, diese Richtung ist Rom.
A unit of veteran German soldiers has made camp on the summit. And if the men are to do what the Devils Brigade did to defeat the Germans, they'll have to climb Defensa's cliffs. Something which has Brian Haynes worried.
The climbing that we've been training on is really making it hit home about the climb that we have ahead of us at Defensa. We've done all of 4 days of training and climbing. And we're all, including myself with my fear of heights, we're all doing pretty good as far as getting up the rock face. But we still have, we don't have the kind of experience that I think is probably necessary for a climb as big as I'm hearing Mount Defensa is.
Brian's instincts may be right. The assault on Defensa will be like nothing the men have ever done. To reach the Germans, the squad must climb to the top of this 3,000-foot-high mountain, crossing ridges and boulder fields as they do. But the real test will come on Defensa's cliffs. If they're to live up to the legend of the Devils Brigade, Brian and the rest of the men must climb these cliffs at night. At dawn, on December 3rd, 1943, the Devils Brigade launched one of the most daring assaults of the Second World War.
On Defensa, you climbed your fingernails, your teeth, and anything else you got to work.
And we climbed, and we climbed, and we climbed.
60 years later, this group of soldiers has just found out how tough a climb that was.
Jay was in front of me, and he grabbed the rock. It was as big as, I couldn't put my arms around it, and there was no, I tried to push it away, but it just overtook me and smashed me right into the other granite, face first, you know.
As the sun rose, the brigade was within a few hundred meters of the enemy.
We watched them come out of those rock caves and emplacements and go to their weapons and get set up. They were set up for the wrong direction.
Okay. Yeah.
The German forces were battle-hardened and desperate. And although the Devils Brigade had surprise on their side, the struggle for Mount Defensa was far from over.
And then somebody said, okay, let them have it. And that was it.
Italy's Liri Valley, vast and fertile, has been the southern highway to Rome for 2,500 years. In his 1944 documentary, San Pietro, director John Huston described it this way.
Liri Valley lies in the Italian Midland, some 60 miles northwest of Naples to some 40 miles southeast of Rome. A wide, flat corridor enclosed between four walls of mountains. The valley floor with its olive groves and ancient vines, its crops of wheat and corn, is green the year around. That is, in normal times. Last year was a bad year for grapes and olives.
By November of 1943, the Allied advance had bogged down in a sea of winter mud and fierce German resistance. San Pietro, Montelungo, Monte Cassino. Some of the most bitter battles of the Second World War were fought in the Liri Valley. Into the maelstrom came a group of men whose very name would chill the enemy. They were the 1st Special Service Force, the Devils Brigade.
Our orders were that the regiment was assigned to take a mountain called Defensa.
After the Allied landings at Salerno, the U.S. Fifth Army advanced rapidly towards Rome. North of Naples, they ran into a German defensive position which stretched across the spine of Italy, known as the Gustav Line. It stopped the Allied advance at a town called Cassino in the Liri Valley. Overlooking the valley, and key to the German strategy, was a mountain known as La Defensa. From Defensa's peaks, the Germans could see the Allied armies in the valley below. And what they could see, they could kill. This is Defensa today. Its tranquility masks the horrors men faced here as they fought, often hand to hand, for a small plateau near the summit, known as the Saucer. "60 years later, the Saucer is once again home to a unit of German troops.
Mein Name ist Ralf Ziegner, ich bin 24 Jahre alt. Ich habe als Gebirgsjäger 1998 bis 1999 in Berchtesgaden gedient, also bei der Infanterie. War eine sehr schöne Zeit. Momentan bin ich als Reservist tätig. Man kann sagen, dass ich nebenberuflich...
Mein Name ist Ralf Carstens, bin Obergefreiter, bin bei der Luftwaffe ausgebildet in Leck, Stadum von 78 bis 79 und bin noch im Reservistenverband RK Wiedinghade.
Mein Name ist André Schmotz, ich bin 27 Jahre alt. Ich habe bei der Bundeswehr eine Ausbildung zum Reserveoffizier gemacht, die hat 2 Jahre gedauert. Ich habe war dort als Gruppen- und als Zugführer eingeteilt.
These men are all experienced soldiers who have come to Italy as part of a war game. They'll defend the Saucer from a squad of Canadian and American infantry who will try and overrun it. But they've also come out of respect for the Panzer Grenadiers who fought and died here. And like those men, the soldiers have no idea when the battle will begin. But they do know the enemy is coming.
Davon die rechte Bergspitze.
These are the men they will face. Canadian and American troops who have recently finished almost a month of training in the year 1942. But not just any training. Devils Brigade training. The 1st Special Service Force was history's original hunter-killer unit. The training those men took was so brutal, so intense, so unlike anything the Army had taught before, the soldiers believed they could do the impossible. At Defensa, they would do just that.
This was our first combat action. And we, as far as I was concerned, we wanted to make it a success.
These soldiers will try to do what the Devils Brigade did. Scale Defensa's cliffs and overrun the German positions. And although their weapons will only fire blanks, the mission they face is very real.
I mean, look at this place. You know, your avenues of approach are really constricted. You know, if you're moving up a road, you're probably going to get ambushed. So you got to get off into this jungle. It's intimidating. I mean, looking up at that peak right there and thinking, well, we're going to have to go up there, you know, and attack this group. You know, thinking that you have to do that under fire is a daunting challenge.
But climbing Defensa will be more than a daunting challenge. For some, it will be the most difficult mission of their lives.
I have a very, very bad fear of heights. You know, some people are afraid of spiders, some are afraid of snakes, I'm afraid of heights. Oh yeah, I'll be fighting my fear of heights the whole way when we do the climbing part.
If the men are to do it the Devils Brigade way, they'll climb the mountain at night. November 1943. The 1st Special Service Force arrives in the shadow of Mount Defensa.
And it was pouring rain. It was pretty rugged because it was nothing but mud. It had been raining. That was the worst winter, apparently, in Italy in I don't know how many years.
Across the Liri Valley, men were wet and cold, anxious to keep their weapons dry.
We were always worried the machine guns would jam. They would freeze up in the cold. It was constantly snowing, wet snow. And it stuck to the metal and froze. If you tried to pull the trigger, nothing happened.
I remember the rain, I remember the food, and I remember the guns. And I figured to myself, this is going to be one hell of a war.
These men have come to the Liri Valley in the dry season. Their olive grove is an oasis, not a swamp.
I'll take that stuff.
But like the men of the brigade who paused here 60 years ago, they have no tents, no fires, and no hot food. Dinner is what soldiers call sea rations, box lunches from 1943.
We have 1 can of chicken luncheon meat. We have graham crackers and defense biscuits. Vanilla caramels. Bouillon powder. Sugar, compressed sugar. Little wooden spoons, matches, cigarettes, gum, and a little can opener.
On the mountaintop, the German squad prepares their meal. The Wehrmacht rations of canned meat, bread, and soup are what German troops ate when and if the supply trains got through.
The difficulty lay in the constant resupplying of the frontline soldiers with ammunition and especially with food. The food carriers often had to climb up the mountain with jerry cans of soup or meat dishes, and often they came late. The soup or the meat was spoiled.
Die Suppe, das Fleisch kam gesäuert an.
In 1943, the Allies patrolled this valley constantly, capturing POWs, meeting partisans, anything to determine where the German guns were. But this squad has no one to help them. So Chris Bird and Jay Budd have gone to do what any good soldier facing a tough mission would do. Find out what they're up against.
So we're looking for a nice natural path that's through this thick brush right here. And a lot of times, if you just take your time, and you can find a natural trail that the animals use. So that's going to be the path of least resistance.
Since the war, the mountain has become overgrown with thorn bushes and dense brush. Climbing Defensa's cliffs will be dangerous. Finding a route to reach them might be impossible. On the day of the assault, the squad prepares with quiet confidence. These men are soldiers from some of the finest regiments, and they've worked hard to prove themselves worthy of this mission.
Looking forward to it. Just want to get up there. Yeah. It's a long go. You don't want to dishonor those guys.
The advantage on any battlefield is held by those who control the high ground. These troops are expecting an assault, but they don't know how many men are coming or from which direction. So they're following the routines the Panzer Grenadiers did in 1943. Maintain the perimeter, use the cover, and wait.
For the most part, the German soldiers of the Italian front came from the campaigns in France and Russia. So they were experienced soldiers, used to quietly following their orders, to doing what they were told without complaining.
The Germans had everything zeroed in, and they're looking down from the top of that mountain, and they could see an ant move, if you want to put it that way.
Hundreds of artillery pieces were coordinated from Defensa's heights. The men who controlled them were dug in and almost invincible to frontal attack. But the Devils Brigade was not the type of unit to walk into the enemy's line of fire. Colonel Frederick, the brigade commander, wanted to see the mountain for himself. So he commandeered an aircraft and flew repeatedly over the German positions. If others couldn't find a way to silence those guns, he would.
The colonel made the decision when we go up, we won't take the usual route, we'll never make it. We'll have to do something different.
When Frederick returned, he had a plan, and this is what he decided. He would take the brigade north through the Allied front lines into no man's land, where they would hide directly below the German guns until nightfall. His scouts would then move on to the mountain, placing ropes on the undefended cliffs behind the German positions. The rest of the brigade would then climb those cliffs in the darkness, and at dawn, attack the Germans.
Cheers, boys. To the force.
To the force.
4 p.m. The long climb begins. The squad's plan is to follow the route the Devils Brigade took and reach the foot of the cliffs before dark. But it's a long way to those cliffs, and the men have no maps. They're prepared for a long night. They have no idea.
You don't want to talk to anybody. You just want to get the hell in there and get it over with. As soon as possible. You're almost mute.
I went out on patrol. Mike Meiklejohn went out on patrol. Ed Thomas was out on patrol.
Several of us, including Tom and Bill Rothland, went up a ways where there was a little rise that we had to climb, and we set ropes there to make it easier.
Yeah, the guys went up first and put in the ropes and what have you, but they had to wait until, well, I was told that it was about 900 artillery pieces put in a 4-hour barrage on the mountain. Basically, they kept the Germans occupied trying to stay out of the artillery barrage, and I wouldn't think they'd hear anything. And that was the idea, that it would divert them thinking something was coming from somewhere else.
So many shells were fired that night, the men called Defensa the $1 Million Mountain. Money, they said, which was very well spent.
Tom ordered the battalion to get started, and we started up in pretty much single file up the mountain. And we climbed and we climbed and we climbed.
Well, it was a pretty steep climb.
Rain showers every now and then, and we could hear the artillery preparation, pounding the mountain, preparing it for our final assault.
"8 p.m. The squad is at rest.
Wow. Right now we're at another security halt. We got a good view of the mountain. The leadership, Jay and Albert, are gonna get their bearings. And then we're gonna pick the best avenue to approach up the mountain.
We have to go ahead and lock and load now because these Grands, you hear that noise, right? We can't go up the mountain and do that. Everyone was trying to be safe, but if anybody, that sound just travels through the chorus, so.
The climb has gone well. But as twilight falls, Danny Hassel is worried that Jay Budd does not know the right path to take.
Did you see that trail at all? It's back there before the road forked. It looked like it was going up straight to the cliffs, right? We might as well stay in this triple canopy, but it's exactly, yeah, it's exactly where they went up. Okay. I'm all over it. You guys have,
All right, roger that.
If you want to take the tourist route, we can go that way, but...
No, let's roll.
All right. I'm gonna talk to the machine gunners.
On Defensa's summit, the German troops finish their last patrol of the day. For almost a week, they've been on edge, waiting for the attack.
Klappspaten sind frei. Wenn der Feind zu nah dran ist, befehle ich Klappspaten frei, daher den Klappspaten schon mal in die Stellung.
Like any good officer, Andre Schmotz issues orders for the night. If something happens and you run out of ammo, he says, keep your head down.
Nein, ihr zieht alle die Köpfe ein, wenn ihr eure Munition aufgebraucht habt.
For these men, their time on Defensa has passed in a routine most soldiers know well. Moments of alarm, hours of work, days of boredom. But tomorrow will be different. Midnight. Danny's instincts were right. The squad is lost.
The traveling's been pretty tough since the sun went down. The terrain itself isn't what makes it difficult. It's the fact that we can't see where we're going. A lot of the guys are carrying quite a bit of kit. One guy has a machine gun. It's really big, really heavy. Apparently we are 100 meters inferred away from the Germans.
They think they're near the cliffs, but no one knows for sure.
It's a little challenging at night. During the day, this is just a quick boulder, piece of cake.
The men have approached this climb like a real Special Forces mission. No light, no noise, no quitting. 60 years ago, the Devils Brigade had no choice. but to do the same.
Doing it in the middle of the night with dead silence, and you can't see much.
As quiet as possible, you cannot move that many men with that much equipment without making some noise.
You weigh so much you can hardly move.
Rifle, 45, your ammunition for both. I was carrying ammunition, some ammunition for a machine gun. I also had a jerry can of water, which just about kills you getting up there.
You weigh about 300 pounds. This is not very easy, and it was cold and wet, and the mountain was very steep, so you are climbing with anything you could.
And we climbed and we climbed and we climbed.
As those men pushed forward, struggling under the weight of their combat packs, there was a moment of near catastrophe. A helmet fell.
Nobody knew that for quite a few years. No, the guy in front of me slipped on the rocks and whacked me in the head with his boot. And when you're climbing like that, you don't have a tight helmet around you, so it was loose, and he kicked it off. And it went down the hill.
But it was raining that night, and the moment passed.
I was mad because at that time I smoked and all my cigarettes and everything were in the helmet.
3 a.m. The squad has reached the cliffs, and they too are about to have a moment of near catastrophe. In the darkness, a rock slide. Rock. Danny Hassel is hit by a boulder the size of a truck tire.
Well, Jay was in front of me, and he grabbed a rock that was easily a piece of granite bigger than I could put my arms around, and he stepped off, and the whole thing rolled over and just crushed me onto the side of the mountain. Smashed my... How's my tooth? I chipped my tooth, too, huh? I hear?
Yeah, there's a little chip there.
Chipped my tooth, smashed my face, crushed my whole hand. Yeah, that hurt, man. It felt like a baseball bat. I saw a couple white flashes. And then a little one hit me, too. I took the big one and smashed, and then as I raised up, another one hit me again. I was like... I did say rock in the middle of it all, though.
I think I heard that.
I did. I said, "Roar."
It sounded pretty gnarly, man. It sounded like the mountain was coming down.
Talking about killing the camera.
I think we scattered down below. I know I did. I just went running in the dark, hoping not to run off a cliff.
Yeah, I kept rolling right over top.
So big, I couldn't put my arms around.
Jumped off the rock, and then fetus jumped into a little cave.
I mean, I heard that, and I, like, for a split second, visualized the whole squad. No, the whole squad getting wiped out. I mean, it sounded like it was freaking coming down in droves.
My hand hurts, though, man. Oof. Nah, man, don't overreact. How far are we to the top?
We're not even halfway yet.
We're not even halfway.
Well,
and the
where's the road?
The steep stuff is just beginning.
It hurts, bro. I want to hurt somebody now. Pissed off, dude.
We're just gonna keep going, because that's what we all want to do as a group, right? So we're gonna go to the objective, and we're not gonna wait till dawn. We're just gonna assault it, kill everybody, and then we're gonna get him medical help.
Oh, that's what we want to do.
So we'll finish the... That's right, we own the night.
And we climbed and we climbed and we climbed.
Ask any one of them if they ever want to do it again. The answer is no.
Mind the language, when the hell are we going to get finished off of these things? Because you were getting pooped. We really were.
Well, you know, you see the movies and all that sort of stuff, and they climb by means of the ropes and that sort of stuff. And that's baloney. On defensive, you climb with your fingernails, your teeth, and anything else you got to work.
When the men left the olive grove, they intended to follow the route the lead platoon of the Devils Brigade took. But the mountain had become overgrown, and the squad lost the trail. For most of the night, they fought their way through thorn bushes and thick undergrowth. And when dawn came, they were on the cliffs, but hundreds of meters below the German camp. – 5 a.m. After a night of waiting for the next rock to fall, tensions are high. Danny's close call has spooked them.
Brian, lean over. No more guys are coming out. Let them know.
At the German camp, the night has passed peacefully, but the dawn is cold. In December of 1943, the Panzer Grenadiers would also have been trying to stay warm, but the artillery barrage had them on alert.
These soldiers, as far as we could tell, by and large were experienced. They'd come off the Russian front, but they were very well trained, exceedingly well trained, as all German soldiers were. They knew their business.
6 a.m. Lead climber Chris Bird is beginning to think he's chosen the wrong route.
I've been saying we're 50 meters for the past kilometer. Rock.
I think this route would be really good for some competent climbers. However, I don't count myself right now as a competent climber. Between my fear of heights and my inexperience on the rocks, this is gonna suck.
After 12 hours on the mountain, the men are exhausted. They've climbed almost 3,000 feet, and there's at least one more peak to scale before they reach the saucer. Joe George has made it. The slowest climber in the squad, Joe has joined the rest of the men at the top of the cliffs. Chris Bird's instincts were right after all. He has brought them to the edge of the saucer. And now these men can do what Special Forces soldiers do best: stalk the enemy.
There weren't any Germans up there at that, when we got up there. We got up there, they were all in their holes. We watched them come out of those rock caves and emplacements and go to their weapons and get set up. We watched them get set up. They were set up for the wrong direction. And then somebody said, okay, let them have it. And that was it.
Different men have different reactions. My reaction was I got a coppery taste in my mouth. You just got to face it and go on.
Oh, that's the machine gun, that's the machine gun. So give me a second. Wait. You guys got nothing. We gotta push and move. Come on, let's go.
And all this ammunition was coming at you. Yeah, I had some sobering moments when I heard that stuff coming in at me.
Yeah, I wish I could get the hell out of here. This is no fun.
We were trying very hard to protect ourselves, and there was nowhere to dig a hole. You couldn't dig holes up there. And I think the only way I got over it was action. I did something. And as soon as you start to do something, your fear dissipates.
Sergeant John Dawson told me, take your machine gun and move it over and start firing over at that other ridge. And on my way over, carrying my machine gun, that's when I got hit in the thigh. I said, Sergeant, I said, I've been hit by a rock. And he came over, he said, you dumb. He said, you've been hit by machine gun fire.
Well, everything was going on. Machine guns. They had about 3 machine gun positions, and we were trying to get the one out. You know, and I was trying to find this guy that kept ducking in and out of behind the rocks and try and pick him at the right time. But he got it, but I don't know whether it was me or not, because there was so much going on.
There was a good regiment up there, a hell of a good regiment up there. They were pretty rough and pretty tough. And in most cases, a lot of them were a parachute regiment, like ourselves.
What do you got? What do you mean? You got no weapon? Machine gun right there. Does that work? Come on, me. Come on. Let's go.
Neben dir, Ralf, rechts!
Chaos to the extent that you only knew what was going on in your particular immediate area. You had an objective and you worked towards that objective.
We got one surrendering!
It took the Devils Brigade about 2 hours to overrun the saucer. Although the fight continued for most of the next day, the victory was assured. Defensa had fallen. For these soldiers, this is a time to recognize new friends in the uniform of old enemies.
Wait.
It is a time of comradeship, but most of all, a time to be thankful that the weapons only fired blanks.
I shoot 1 magazine, 2 magazine, 3 magazine, and my ammunition was over.
It's hard to find a good cover in this direction.
Yeah, well, we saw your heads bobbing there, so we knew where you guys were.
Yes.
When you do combat with guys with your own unit, you know, you always give an enemy force like a certain section, and you know these guys and you see them all the time, and it's just your game's not on. But when you come up here, you've worked hard. You're both wearing different uniforms. You're representing the old boys, and you see their enemy at the time and their uniforms, and the adrenaline's going, and everyone switched on. The attack was really good. I tell you, my adrenaline was pumping for sure.
It sounds like real war, and I didn't expect that. But it's so real. We have no sharp ammunition, but it was really real.
If you look down in that valley there's no way you think guys would be able to come over without being detected. What the forcemen did it's unbelievable. It's unheard of.
You know, and they were young men. They were 19, 20, 22. They were young guys. And yeah, you just look around at the hills and you think those men spent years of their life doing this, you know, years. and died by the hundreds and the thousands in these valleys. So, yeah, you think about that all the time.
"60 years after the storming of Mount Defensa, the saucer has once again become a pasture, the domain of shepherds, not soldiers. But in the mountain's shadow lie many of the men who died on that long-ago morning, soldiers who fell far from home. The soldiers of the 1st Special Service Force who lie at the foot of Mount Defensa have become a legend, and the world remembers that legend. Those who survived remember the men. Men like Tom McWilliam, a school teacher from New Brunswick. Tom McWilliam was a lieutenant colonel who commanded the 1st Battalion. Stu Hunt was his bodyguard.
Guy that's leading, reading maps and all this sort of stuff, can't protect himself. I was very young, and so I think Colonel McWilliam said, "Come on, kid, come with me, I'll take care of you." Pulled me out of a company. He said, "You're my bodyguard."
Newly married, McWilliam's wife Harriet had written with news of her pregnancy. The letter arrived the day before the Defensa attack. But only American troops received mail that day. Tom McWilliam went into battle unaware of the news from home.
The main battle moved off to the right, maybe a couple of 100 yards. McWilliam said, "We've got to get over to where the last of the Germans are to get at them." We got part way across, they dropped the bomb on them. Yeah, I sort of went this way and he went that way. I knew he was dead. I mean, this is not something where you got to check the pulse like they do in the movies. A guy gets hit with a close mortar bomb in the open, you don't need to look for a pulse.
Historians estimate 73 1st Special Service Force members died that day. The German losses were in the hundreds. The Devils Brigade took few prisoners. Under the silent watch of the storied Monte Cassino, this squad of American and Canadian soldiers have come to pay respects to the fallen. As they pause at the graves of their brothers in arms, these young soldiers see more than names carved in stone. They see the men who were once just like them.
I think I'm going to speak for most of the guys when I say this. My voice is quivering. It's overwhelming. I mean, we got to walk in their footsteps. Very little that it was, you know, in those 3 weeks before coming here to do the mission in Italy. And standing here is, it's heavy. It's heavy on my heart.
I started off by just reading the names and the regiments and stuff they're from. And I started reading how old they were in the comments at the bottom, and most of them are the same as I was. Like, the average age, I think, was early 20s, and I've seen a couple 19, a couple 20, and that's me, you know. There's a lot of comments on the bottom. A lot of them had wives, and it's sad.
Right here in this row, there's 5 headstones from the force, all that are dated 3rd of December, 43, the day they took Defender. And it's just, it helps put things in perspective that after that mock assault that we did the other day.
Same, like, my regiment wasn't here, but there's a lot of people from
regiments that I have friends in, and it's hard, it's tough to believe that that could be them.
As you walk up the steps and turn the corner, it literally takes your breath away. Seeing the thousands of stones.
I can't really comprehend or even begin to comprehend what the force would have went through going up there under fire. It's kind of...
it just hits home. And, okay, next question.
When we sit here in the Leary Valley, in this grave, remember that they're veterans, old and young.
Almost a year to the day after the victory at Mount Defensa, the 1st Special Service Force held its final parade. The Devils Brigade was no more. The military bureaucracy decided Canada's best trained troops ever could better be used as replacements. As they left the field, the Canadians saluted their American comrades and quietly vowed never to forget.
Those that I remember, and we remember a lot of them. You couldn't find any better no matter where you looked. We're proud to have borne the colors of the 1st Special Service Force.
You kind of can't believe you were stupid enough to get involved, but as most people say, if they needed me now, I'd go. I mean, you don't learn a hell of a lot, even after 60 years.
I don't think, well, we're not looking for riches or money or medals, because we was doing what we thought was important to save our country and the peace that we enjoy. And you'd be surprised what a simple thank you means.